Welcome to the Leg 3 Amazing Race recap, straight from the You Are Team Number podcast. I'm Ben Powell, and I have much more than 6 whips in my collection, and joining me today is a man who, much like the races of this leg, is constantly followed everywhere he runs by wild dogs, Logan Saunders.
Afternoon.
As always, if you have any questions you'd like us to cover on the podcast, you can contact us via our Facebook group, the You Are Team Number podcast, follow us on hashtag yatncast on Twitter, or email us at yatncast@gmail.com.
Did we get any emails for this week?
I don't know. I don't run the email account. That's Michael's job.
The
emails
will be read in 2 weeks. Don't you worry, guys.
So if anyone has any scandalous revelations about Justin and Diana they'd like us to announce only via email, Michael will tell us that in 2 weeks if they're still in the race. Although, come to think of it, we'd have much more to discuss about what's coming in the coming weeks rather than what happened on this episode. So
yeah,
not much really happened, did it?
No, very few notes to write down for this week overall. So yeah, I guess we should just dive right into it.
Yeah, this is very much the definition of a filler episode.
Yeah, it reminds me of when with the later seasons of the TV show 24, where they started inserting as many action events as possible, where it'd just be like smaller plot lines that go on for 4 episodes and they move on to the next thing. And during these later seasons, they often refer to the interlude between these episodes as bridge episodes, because it would be right before all the action was going to happen, and that's very much the case for this week.
When I think 24 and filler plotline episodes, I think that about that time that Jack's daughter was trapped by mountain lions.
That was season 2, yeah, with the cougar incident. I'm
led to believe that it wasn't the show's finest hour?
No, they probably had 23 finer hours than that during that day.
Yes. Anyway, so we start the episode off with a recap of Tanner and Josh's hamstring pull, and that's really all. Because apparently God has a plan for them.
God has a plan for the hamstring strain.
God has a plan for them to pull an important muscle in their leg on a foot race to 3rd place with a mother and son. On the Amazing Race in Argentina.
As Mark and Bill would say, Avi and Joe would say, God certainly has a sense of humor.
Yes, he does. Anyways, Justin and Diana start at insert time here because I don't think they really care this leg. Start teams must travel by bus to San Antonio de Areco, then take a pickup truck to La Portina. And I know we all complained last season about how Canada's Amazing Race only went to small provinces and towns that nobody has ever heard of, but this place is tiny. It's absolutely dwarfed by the small towns and provinces that I complained about all last season. It's a town of 16,000 people.
Yeah, and you can apparently only get there by pickup truck, a bus and then a pickup truck. Yeah,
I'm willing to bet that there's not even one set of lights flashing yellow there, Jet and Cord type town.
Yeah. There's one gacho who operates a flight that's flashing yellow. And the dogs outnumber the people there, apparently.
Anyway, we also find out when Justin and Diana check out that they have actually seen every season 3 times.
At least 3 times.
At least 3 times. For A of all, God bless them for getting through season 6 3 times.
Yes.
B of all,
was that satisfying.
And B of all, I haven't even seen every season 3 times. I've seen about 95% of every season, and I've seen the essential seasons 2 or 3 times, but not all seasons. I can't get through 24 or 6 as 3 times. I'm sorry.
Over the years, I think I may have racked up 3 times of seeing season 6. Once, because this was it's one of the earlier seasons, so I think this would have been towards the end of the 6th or 7th grade when I started recording all the episodes of Survivor and Amazing Race and them all on VHS tape. So when I was younger, especially at the very start of high school where I didn't really know anybody in my grade, some of the weekends would just be spent rewatching some of the older seasons of Survivor and Amazing Race, and when you only have a couple seasons of each series on VHS tape, well, your options are kind of limited on what to rewatch.
We've all been there. I've been there. And well, I guess there's good points. I think it's almost essential to rewatch Amazing Race 3 every year.
Probably the season I've personally seen the most over the years. I haven't seen it since I had blogged about it 4 years ago, simply because of, adulting is hard, that's as they say. And,
yes, it is.
But yeah, I would say that season is probably the most I've seen overall in my experience.
Well, there's not really much to discuss about the start of this leg. We get another continuation of the Justin versus the world rivalry thing, or mostly Josh and Tanner.
Justin versus Texas, the state of Texas.
Justin versus Josh and Tanner. Justin versus Jet and Cord. Justin versus the flashing yellow light. He's just making enemies out of the entire Bible Belt right there.
Pretty much, yeah. He might be limited for travel within the United States in the near future.
Not much to discuss about that. Like that storyline is overpowering, and the only other thing to discuss is I'm not really getting a good picture of how far behind Ernest and Jin were from behind the 8th place team.
They did list a departure time. It was only, they said, Jasmine and Danielle depart at 6:53 a.m. and Ernest and Jin at 7:16 a.m. So in most cases, this would still be a really close time gap to start out a race, but it seemed like with the intervals between when the buses left the bus station, that the first 2 buses left really close together, and then the 3rd bus with Ernest and Jin seemed like it was hours and hours behind. But what I'm guessing probably happened is that the round was just so short in that little area that they were in, the San Benito, Carlos, whatever the hell it's called. And the gap was just that much more exaggerated because of how quick it was to get through the tasks down there.
There wasn't even any indication that the second to last team and the last team were even in waiting distance of each other. So I think they must have been pretty far behind. By the time Tiffany Krista left and Ernest and Jenna got to the roadblock, the weather had changed completely. So it's pretty confusing of how far they fell behind, and it sort of did make for a very uneventful round because we sort of knew that Ernest and Jin were going to leave at the end of this episode. So yeah, nothing to get too worked up about though.
Yeah, it's definitely a flashback. I like to always refer to this type of episode as being in Lorena and Jason mode, where you just see them in the one taxi for 3/4 of the episode, and they try to make you think they're going to catch up, but with how quick the round is going to be, that there's just no way in hell that that's going to happen. And I think this is just one of those rounds where the editors try to make something out of nothing as hard as they possibly could, but there's only so much you can do as an editor.
And with a cast that's providing not as little as content as this one is, it's kind of hard to put together an episode, really.
And what's surprising me the most out of everything so far is just how much they're trying to bank on building up this whole rivalry between Justin and Diana and Tanner and Josh. It's as if none of the other teams really exist except for their own very minor storylines. But it's like they're supposed to be the supporting cast. That's almost like a sideshow to really this being a 2-team season so far. I'm hoping that this isn't the case for all 12 rounds, because after this next round with the whole double U-turn, that things would have to switch story-wise, otherwise it's going to get stale very quickly from an editing perspective. From
an editing analysis perspective, I'm thinking that the storyline actually burns out pretty quickly, they both go out 8th and 7th or something. This is from someone who's completely unspoiled. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking that the morsels of stuff we're getting from other teams now are going to be significant later on. Mm-hmm. But that's a bit worrying because we've only really got meaningful content from 2-3 teams. So other than the Texan guys and Justin and Diana. So yeah, mm-hmm. The only other teams I've really noticed that have gotten significant content are Denise and James Earl and Tiffany and Krista. So
I would agree with that.
Everyone else is just sort of wallpaper right now. So it's tough.
Mm-hmm. I was reading about that online, where that comment seems to be echoed online, where they'll say, well, they think that Justin and Diane is annoying. They may not be too fond of Team Texas, and then they don't have an opinion on anybody else, except for Ernest and Jin so far. And the hats.
Yeah, and then there's the obligatory comment about how Tiffany and Krista are awful just because they're women who look pretty or whatever. But, we ignore that. We ignore that on the yatncast.
Yes, and they are athletes. believe it or not, women can be athletes on The Amazing Race.
Shock. Shocker.
So there wasn't really even that many tasks to talk about this round. There was just the 2 tasks and lots of running around with dogs. So first task after the whole bus and pickup truck thing is
the roadblock.
The roadblock, yeah, the meat.
Yeah, who is smoking hot?
Ha!
So basically, just have to hang 2 racks of lamb and 2 racks of beef on a set of metal crosses to prepare cooking asado, apparently. And once both meats are hanged in all sides, they need to be stewed properly with the bones until given into the K-Cook standards. He'd give them the next clue. Basically, they need to crucify the meat. Yeah.
As a vegetarian...
Hard to watch?
I would not be too fond of doing this task.
I'm not a fan of meat. I'm not a fan of preparing meat in general. So neither really, and especially since it's going to be it's one of those finicky, organize something in a particular way, paying a super attention to detail sort of tasks. So it's not really that. It's probably about as fun to do as it is to watch, really. So
yeah, I imagine that meat must have smelled horrible.
The only 2 things I really noticed were whenever any other team was talking, you could hear Justin laughing in the background,
Gaucho, amigo! Hola gaucho, amigo! Stupido americano!
And then there was the whole thing with Denise somehow accidentally helping James Earl during the roadblock with the whole directing him from the sidelines thing.
That's such a mom thing to do. Just disregard for the rules and you just blurt out what the answer should be and you completely forget that this is a rigid game show with very black and white rules. You can't just help your son, it's like trying to help your son with the homework. It's, you can get away with it there, but, you can't get away with it on a national game show.
Has there actually been any other notable instance of, the team member, verbally helping their partner during the roadblock?
I couldn't think of a single example in any of the English-speaking versions. Could you?
I thought of a near example. Back in All Stars, when Robin, Amber, and Charlotte and Myrna were doing the letter sorting roadblock, and Myrna was telling or Charlotte, whoever wasn't sorting letters was telling their partner that there was a bag they hadn't done, and then Rob was like, "You can't talk to her." So I thought of that, but technically Charlotte wasn't helping Myrna, so it really was Muthian. But I thought of that sort of. Although, can you imagine if how anticlimactic that would have been if Myrna just after level 5 on the treadmill and running up the hill and all that, Charlotte and Myrna, you are the 7th team to arrive, but you have a 30-minute penalty, so we're here.
Oh, the audience, the casual audience, and everybody in general would just go ballistic over that. It would be such a polarizing reaction, especially when you have Boston Rob and Amber. This was a couple of years after their run on Amazing Race 7, so they'd sort of faded a bit from reality TV at this point for 2 years. And I think they were still in it enough that fans would have just called the race rigged if Rob and Amber were able to stay in the race because of that.
They're lucky that wasn't a predetermined non-elimination leg, so because then people would be doubting the authenticity of the predeterminedness of those non-elimination legs.
And there's still people that still think that they're post-determined non-elimination legs. In Canada, we saw people claiming that with Brent and Sean, and I'm sure we're going to see that claimed a couple of times this season.
Game show laws aren't real, only feels, or whatever.
Yeah.
The route info is to deliver a rack of roasted lamb to Plaza Principal, which is where the rest of the leg will be set.
Speaking of with the roadblock there, just to go back to it for a second,
Yeah.
It was really tough to watch it as a viewer because it wasn't audience friendly in terms of being able to follow along with what was exactly going on. So it's like, oh, they put the meat together. This is what they did wrong. Okay, we'll just accept that and watch them do another attempt and rinse and repeat. So it wasn't watching people assemble meat in a specific way that the audience couldn't really keep track of. Like with watching it, they couldn't think, oh yeah, they're doing this part wrong. It was just they're just waiting for them to ask the judge, and the audience said, "Oh, I guess they got it wrong." I don't know why, but okay.
Yeah, that's my thoughts exactly. Like I couldn't tell what they're doing wrong. So yeah, really.
Yeah, there's not much else to talk about with this task. I love how Michael gets to go on vacation. You get to fill in for for pretty much the most boring week possible, possibly in maybe since the premiere of last season for the Amazing Race.
Yeah. Unlucky me. So, the only little note I can think of is that the fact that they're like riding in the back of a truck to get to 2 route markers just sort of reminded me of season 7 back in Peru, with the whole after you finish the detour, go down to this post office and take a truck to the next city or whatever, that sort of thing. That's what it reminded me of. So that was good, but everything else I'm like was like, if I didn't write it down for this podcast, I'd probably have forgotten already.
I think with the roadblock 2 is a big letdown for people, because Michael was speculating on it last week, but he heard a rumor that he thought this was going to be a switch back to the Mendoza meat eating roadblock from season 7 as well, where people were thinking that the roadblock was going to be to eat all that meat. Instead, it's just to assemble it on a steak. So, pretty big letdown for those viewers who were assuming that's what the task was going to be.
That would have been fun.
It would have, because I would have finally received validation that I was right after all these years, that Rob didn't convince anybody to drop out of that roadblock. It's because Meredith was a 70-year-old guy who couldn't handle eating all that meat, and Dina was one of the smallest racers doing that roadblock. So Rob didn't convince anybody to drop out of it, and it would have been nice to have that task play out again this season, just to prove that it's like, no, people can't eat that much meat. Only a few people can do that, and if they do, they don't feel too good by the end of the leg.
Or if you're at each other, you can just devour the entire thing, just open up and swallow it like a duck or something.
Ah! Or if you're Patrick, then you just quit, and then you resume doing the task, and then you quit again, and then you see that Debbie and Bianca caught up to you after 6 hours, and then finally you complete the task.
Yeah. Anyway, let's talk about more interesting seasons. Let's go back to this one. Alright, the detour was horse or carriage. For horse, they had to pick a polo mallet, walk less than a mile to Boliche de Bessenart, change into their polo gear, travel across to a riverside, pick a fake horse, and equip it properly, and then push it back to the plaza to retrieve the next clue.
That is a tongue twister.
Boliche de Bessenart. I looked up a lot of these locations on Google Maps, and they're all relatively close by, less than a mile. It's even though it's technically across town, it's still a pretty close location. The carriage one was a long walk, obviously because it actually it actually resulted in some placement changes, but still. Speaking of carriage, you had to pick a buggy whip from the plaza, travel by foot almost a mile to La Quina Estancia. I'm butchering this.
L'Estancia, is that the Argentine version of the Stankonia album by Outkast?
Yes.
You don't know your early 2000s hip hop, do you, Ben?
No, I don't listen. That's not my genre. I'm more of a indie Australian art house guy. Anyway, anyway, they have to change into gaucho clothing. Gauchos are like the Argentinian cowboys.
They always have been and always will be, according to the Amazing Race.
Then they have to clean a carriage with gigantic dusters, push it a long distance to a team of waiting horses, and once they harness to the buggy, they take it back to the plaza as well. And nothing really interesting occurred here either. We got more shots of people being annoyed by Justin. We got a few people who forgot to pick up things up and they had to go back and get them. There was a few dangling chain straps.
At least we had Justin dancing with that one random woman and almost got sidetracked by the whole task, or Ernest and Jin bringing up doo-doo once again with dusting the carriage. It's like their favorite point of discussion. It's either hitting on women that they see along the race course, or they're talking about doo-doo. Very caveman-esque train of thought. Phil's pun game is much weaker than Alan Wu's. The pun of saying, teams get to meet the gauchos for the roadblock. And, that pun was just way too easy for him. At least Alan Wu will reach a bit more and be a bit more clever about it. But with Phil here, it was a meet roadblock, and just saying, the teams are going to meet the gauchos. I think Phil could have done a bit better than that.
Sink their teeth into the gauchos.
Yeah, and then just, of course, other teams want to make jokes about, Josh wiping the meat with his face, and and then the gauchos not approving of Joey's meat and everything like that. They could have for a boring episode, they could have made it so much more inappropriate, but they failed to do so.
I'm not sure if it's the fault of the editors. I think it's more the fault of the cast, really, because out of the teams so far, all of them do seem like really level-headed people, or just like if they do have conflict, it's rather like boring conflict. Like I can tell you that Logan and Chris had a little fight last episode, but I have no idea what it was about. So, and I can tell you that Cindy and Rick have tension in their relationship, but I can't remember for the life of me what it was about. So, like the only two if you take out the rivalry, like I said, the only two teams that have really clicked for me are the cheerleaders and the mother and son team, which is not good considering that you've still got half a cast missing content.
You know what would make it more interesting, though, is if they aired more clips of Diana trying to pronounce the names of the Spanish route markers. Because at the start of the round, she really butchered the name of the first route marker. Her pronunciation wasn't even close to what Phil said on screen.
Yeah, that was a bit tragic.
What about the pinky promise? Do we have to discuss that as well between Denise and James Earl?
Do we? Because I can't really remember what that was about. Like I watched the episode twice and I can't remember. So
the pinky promise was essentially to not fight anymore after because at the start of the episode Denise was all frustrated with thinking that James Earl was shouting at her, or how James Earl thought that she was being too overbearing, and how he didn't want to keep talking to the taxi driver, saying too many place names because he thought the taxi driver would just get lost and not drop him off at the wrong location. I haven't really heard that as a reason to not speak to a taxi driver before, is because you don't want to add in the 7 or 8 word names for places and be afraid that you're going to confuse the guy. And the whole pinky promise on the pickup truck was not to fight anymore, and they didn't fight, but
she sort of sabotaged him?
Denise did help him. Yes, that was a sabotage instead of fight. If she can't have it one way, then she's going to have it the other way. And I love how Denise always refers to him as James Earl in the little southern accent there. Like everyone else would probably just call him James or come up with some sort of nickname for him. But it's his mother when she's like, "Dang it, James Earl, why are you doing?"
It's a very hard name to shorten. I mean, besides the obvious James, there's not really much you can do with James Earl.
Or call him J.E. or.
It doesn't really roll off the tongue that well. Like JT does, or MJ or AJ,
TJ.
Those things sort of do, but like JE it's too many mouth movements.
Sounds like a Boston accent trying to say that.
JE. Anyway, so not really much more happened. Like the only thing we have left to discuss is the pit stop and how half the teams went over a wrong bridge or something. They have to travel by foot to the Parque Criollo I Museo Gauchesco Ricardo Guaraldes, and I probably pronounced a few of those words wrong. I mean, thankfully on the show they shortened it to Museo Gauchesco.
Which sounds like the most stereotypical name for a place in the region there. The Museo Gauchos.
But since I like to live dangerously, I Wikipedia it and got the entire name. And, like the rest of the leg, it was done on foot. So basically it was, I figured it out. There's actually, it was on the other side of town, but it was around a 2 kilometer run or so, which would take about,
not too long. Yeah, that's about all it would take.
That's 20 minutes, but to get to the other side of town, which is across the river, there was 2 bridges, and the one that was closest to the actual place had construction going on.
The bridge is out.
Yes. So I'm guessing that if the placement changes happened when a few of the teams went to the one bridge, saw the construction had to go to the other bridge, and then that really is all there is to talk about apart from the penalty and the fact that that was the most relaxed foot race I've seen to a pit stop ever. It's Tanner and Josh and Justin Zenner were like, oh no, there's the other team. Oh no, let's having a foot race, and then they just sort of pull out. Slightly jog.
Pull out the other hamstring.
And then pull the other hamstring, and then sort of politely, slowly jog to the pit stop. Although I'm guessing they've been running all day, so I don't think they have enough energy to, you go get that. You can have that flight to Cambodia. I I don't really feel like running. Although, just imagine that being said with a really strong Philly accent, which I can't do because my impression is limited to Bethany Hamilton and the one line from Brooke and Robbie.
Well, yeah, I mean, this leg really didn't matter at all in the grand scheme of things, but it would have been hilarious if either A, Tanner pulled the other hamstring trying to beat Jess and Diane to the mat, or Josh pulled a hamstring, and neither of those happened, and because Phil knows there's not going to be a whole lot to talk about in terms of Matt chat all day. He took it upon himself to mention a U-turn is coming up, which there's never been a Phil announced a U-turn the round before it's going to happen.
Yeah. And
then even strangers that a team just openly states that they're going to U-turn the other team, which that's a bit of a weird strategy to take, but
yeah.
It's like they don't. It's like there's no other team in the whole season right now, in the eyes of Justin, Diana, or Tanner and Josh. It's really just them going to be head to head, and I would even go on so far to say that neither of them think that any other team is even remotely in contention to win the season right now. And they're probably absolutely convinced that if their rivals get knocked out, then they're bound to be in the winner's circle. Which is a strange thing to think about when it's only round 3.
Well, in the last two rounds, it's been a sort of BJ Tyler and Eric Jeremy situation that they've both been swapping first or second place. So I get in this sort of thing in the race when in this stage in the race, I guess I'm not justified in thinking, but I can understand their thinking that they've got no competition.
Justified?
You know what? No, not really, because that hasn't been that difficult of a leg so far. It's been just a bit of running, and eventually there's going to be a mental task, and you can't run within that. Last week was collect trash and dance. This leg was run everywhere.
Do you think they made teams run just so the round would be longer than an hour long?
Yeah, I think, and although I think they made them run because that doesn't look like a town that has a cab service.
No, but the thing is that the round started around 6 a.m. and then Ernest and Jin were last at around 7 a.m. point, leaving the pit stop, and it was still, and this is right in the middle of winter there, so daylight's going to be really short for this round. I think this was filmed, this would have been right in the middle of South America's winter, so daylight would have been really small time gap, and we didn't even see any darkness at all during the day. So it had, if you include the bus ride and the ride with the pickup truck, then this round had to be insanely quick.
Yeah, I can't really see that round being more than 2-3 hours.
And that's making them run everywhere.
Yeah, from getting off the bus to the pit stop, it was probably about around 2-3 hours from Jenna and Tosh checking in to Tiffany and Krista checking in. So, and then even taking into Ernest and Jin's thing, that was probably only a few hours after that as well. So the whole filming of the round could have been over in 5-6 hours.
Exactly. And when you have a weak round on your hands when the biggest twist is that the horses they had to decorate and equip were fake. That was the big shocker of the round.
It led to one amusing moment when James Earl and Denise had a fight over trying to get the horse up onto a curb.
Yeah. We can lift it. No, we can't. What about our pinky promise?
James Earl! And then they almost fell over, and that was the only mildly amusing thing that really happened that round.
The fake horse has been injured, James Earl. It's all your fault. Can we put lipstick on it? It's fake.
Oh, so do you think my theory about how Justin, Diana, and Josh and Tanner's play is going to come to a head next episode, and then they're both going to be gone in the next 2 rounds?
I don't really see that happening.
I see it happening because rivalry plots in The Amazing Race don't really get to a head this quickly. I mean, sure, if they've got the footage, they'll air it, and obviously there's nothing else happening this round. That's the only thing they air. But it just seems like, because of the way that the U-turn was announced, Phil announced the U-turn, and Josh and Tanner's plan is going to be get to the detour, use the express pass, U-turn Justin and Diana, eliminate them. And then if the hamstring really is that bad, or if they pull the other hamstring, or pull 2 hamstrings or whatever, then I don't really see them that long for the race, as it is. So that's just my theory. I'm not based off anything apart from the fact that Justin and Diana and Josh and Tanner are the only two teams getting any meaningful story-related screen time out of these past 3 episodes, and I think most are just wishful thinking, because as hilarious as I find the Green Team and the Team Texas rivalry, it's very overwhelming and constricting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if it were just removed from the season entirely, there'd be more room for the other teams to, float around and do their thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said at the start, the only two other teams I can think of that got meaningful content were the cheerleaders talking about how people underestimate them, and Denise and James Earl doing their whole mother-son routine. And that's really not much. I don't hate anyone left. It's just that I'm bored by a lot of them. Even the teams I feel I should like. Like, I feel I should be liking the track stars, but...
We haven't seen anything from the track stars other than I'll buy you a pair of new feet when we win the $1 million.
Yeah.
That's the only clip from them, and then them just being super bummed about possibly going home. That's really the only 2 moments we've seen from them. Or teams keep talking up about how Chack Attack, I hate that nickname.
I hate it.
That Chack Attack could be major forces. But yeah, we've seen nothing from them other than the pit stop greeter from last round making fun of them being newlyweds. And then the expression on Cindy's face when she when her face just absolutely dropped when she realized that she had to run back to get all the equipment. It didn't matter whatsoever in the end, but just seeing her face drop like that is probably the biggest moments they've had from all 3 episodes so far.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, they had like a minor subplot with Denise and James Earl, and how Denise and James Earl beat them at a mental task or something.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really all she wrote.
I like how there was that one dog that was limping like Tanner was, I think the dog was just trying to troll Tanner, in my opinion. And I think the most compelling character overall this round was the napping dog towards the end of the round. It got more airtime than Jasmine and Danielle did.
So, Ernest and Jim, the 9th places of the Amazing Race 27, what do we think of them?
I think producers were very disappointed that they were early exits from the race. I think, especially preseason with Phil talking them up as much as he did, you get the impression that production really like these guys. They know that they can be entertaining on television, and their whole energy and multiple ways that you can edit them in terms of story. And then what they end up getting is them being eliminated, not only in the 3rd round, which is really early in the season, especially in an era of the Amazing Race where you have 4 non-elimination legs now each time, but also the fact that they had to be ousted in the most boring way imaginable in years.
Yeah.
Yeah. What amazed me just by how boring this round was is that I watched this episode just a few hours ago at around 11 a.m. today. And I just found myself just really tired by the end of watching it. And I'm thinking that the episode just had nothing to really draw you in the whole time.
That's really it. Like, the only thing we can really discuss is, next week is A, the W turn, and B, African women decide to spit in the racist faces.
We may see things turn around for next week by that description alone. Even with this week, with the episode title being "Where's My Dogs At?" and then Justin and Tiffany both messaging me on Twitter saying, it's a quote after DMX song, because I know it's also a lyric used in a Lil Bow Wow song. And I'm waiting all the episode for somebody to do their DMX impression saying, "Where my dog's at?" And it's just Ernest and Jin just saying it in passing without any DMX-ness whatsoever. They don't even say what or anything like that. I was just so disappointed.
Yeah. Once again, I'm a white hippie, Australian hippie from the semi-suburbs. So hip hop isn't my forte. So I didn't understand a word of that.
You don't. Yeah. You have to Google DMX singing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer or DMX doing the Reading Rainbow theme, because those are 2 beloved remixes on YouTube. I
know Run DMC, but that's only because they did a collaboration with Sarah McLachlan. That's where my music taste extends to.
I see. Yeah, Run DMC is quite a bit different from DMX.
All right, so basically my thoughts for the future of the season are: I hope Justin and Diana. I like Justin and Diana. I think that the fact that everyone finds the most annoying people alive is somewhat hilarious. But it's just the fact that the editors have made their storyline so central that it's sort of choking the life out of the season, and the really bad route doesn't help. So for the good of the season, and I guess for the crushing of Justin's dreams, we like you, Justin.
More entertaining than Tanner and Josh. Tanner and Josh, it's amazing how much fun they can suck out of the room within seconds.
I don't mind them. I like them I like the rivalry. Like, I like how I like it when they went past the limp dog and it was like, oh, he's hurt too. That was sort of funny. I don't think they're actively boring, but like it's just the rivalry is just getting to the point where I kind of want them both to go. Like,
or at least one to go, just for the rivalry to end.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, I can't, unless Justin and Diana really do kick ass on the next leg, I can't really see the rivalry lasting past the next leg, so, yeah.
Or Tiffany and Krista could also develop a rivalry with Indiana Jones, considering they forgot the whip, and I hear Indiana Jones was really offended by that. Who forgets the whip?
A boulder, like, rolling down the streets of San Antonio de Areco would have been made the episode more interesting, I guess.
Yes. And then I think the real reason why Ernest and Jin were eliminated is because Jin couldn't stop staring himself at the mirror when he was putting on the polo outfit. He just kept looking at his own reflection. Jin narcissism.
Yeah, so I reiterate, I hope they both... I like them both. I think they're both very entertaining, and I wish the best for them in life or something. But it's strangling the rivalry is strangling the season, and I think it's best if they both leave. So the other teams have more time to breathe and stuff. Like, I'll probably be eating my words if they do leave, and the season is even more boring. After which I will apologize profusely.
As long as Tiffany and Krista keep delivering in terms of, especially like saying, oh, we've got everything, and they forget something at the same time. Or when Tiffany completes a task, she jumps up and down like Chun-Li from Street Fighter. If she can keep that up, that would be great. And yeah, I don't know what to expect from the other teams. Like, are Logan and Chris just going to be like a minor league version of a bickering dating couple? And are Cindy and Rick ever going to have anything worthwhile to say or be funky at all? There is a team named Joey and Kelsey that was in this episode, but
I don't believe you.
Yeah, there was a team. They did well. They weren't kidnapped in a truck like last week, but they did their thing. They didn't do any morning news reports, which was kind of disappointing. But
all right, I think we're done for the week. Thank you, listeners, so much for listening this week, and we'll hopefully get back to some more interesting content next week. We will see you next time. Would you like to sign off, Logan?
Hashtag yatncast, hashtag Jinja Ninja, hashtag 250. Peace. What?
Hashtag 1.61.